Hello, it's Tom LaForce, and today I have another video for you about the power of asynchronous collaboration. Some people have asked me to get more specific about how it works, so I thought an example might help, starting with a simple task for which you may have already used an async approach, collaborating on a document. If you've ever been in a meeting in which the group tries to wordsmith the document in real time, you have firsthand experience in how difficult this is. My best advice for you the next time you're tempted to do this is don't. Work async instead. Async means you spread the work out over time and allow everyone to chime in when it works best for them, within limits, of course. Success on this project depends on some of the same factors that drive success in a meeting. Roles must be clearly spelled out. Expectations must be specific and reasonable. And the tools you use need to make the task easier for you and your team. Everyone needs to be more productive. Let's look at each of these in more depth, beginning with roles. For a writing task, the roles you should consider are an owner, who will likely be the main writer. This person's job is to make sure the project gets done and sets up the process to help the work proceed more smoothly. Contributors are the people who have expertise and ideas that the owner wants to make sure are considered and possibly included. An editor ensures the final product conforms to all standards, including your company's style guide and applicable grammar rules. Finally, there may be some reviewers who don't necessarily have any role in the production work, but have a huge stake in the outcome. They may not need to approve the final draft, but they can make a big problem for you if they don't like what you've written. It's worth noting that sometimes a person may play more than one role. For example, you may find that your reviewers also want to contribute ideas. The best way to help others meet your expectations is to first make sure they understand your expectations. Anytime more than one person is involved in the project, it's important that everyone shares common expectations that are clear and reasonable. In this case, the expectations that you need to establish include who is involved and what role will each person play. What specifically are you asking them to do? Define what success looks like for each assignment. When are specific tasks due? In an async project, this is the most important expectation to set if you don't want your project to drag out forever. Finally, how are tasks going to be done? For example, how should others deliver their feedback to you? Define the workflows for your project. The right tools and the ability to use them well can help you do this work a lot better. The first thing to check on is to make sure all your collaborators have access to the tool. That means they are licensed to use it and have set up an account when necessary. If your collaborators are not a member of your organization, there may be a little more work involved in getting them set up. It's always hardest the first time. Put in the effort to work through these obstacles to prevent someone from later telling you they didn't do their assignment because they couldn't get access. Next, your tool needs to have the right functionality and everyone needs to be aware of it. Chances are the tool does, but often people don't know about it. Some of the key functions you need include document sharing, version control, commenting, and editing. Finally, people need to be able to use the necessary functions. Again, just because you're familiar with how to do something and maybe even think it's not that hard, I would not make that assumption about everyone else. Let me show you a basic function which may be new to you. This slide shows how you might use the review function on Microsoft Word. On the ribbon at the top of Word is a button called Review. When you pull up that menu, you'll see another button that says Track Changes. When that's enabled, deletions will be listed to the right of the content. Any insertions will be added and underlined. You can see an example of some marked up text right here on the screen. You can also highlight a word and then click to add a comment. Think of all these changes as suggestions that your collaborators think you should make. If you right-click on any of these suggestions, you'll have the option to accept or reject it. If you reject it, the previous version will be restored. If you accept it, the suggestion disappears and the text is changed. If you're a Google company, Google Docs has a similar feature. In the upper right, you'll see the word editing as the standard, and there's a little drop-down arrow. You click the arrow and you change this to suggesting. Now, to make this work in either of these apps, everyone must use the same document, which means you need to master document sharing. This process quickly turns into a nightmare if people are emailing attachments with their recommendations and you're trying to figure out which document is the latest and greatest, and it's just a mess. A second critical success factor is having one person who's authorized to be the final decider. That should be spelled out when defining the roles. Let me show you an example. Suppose you were tasked with writing a description for a new service, which will eventually be published on the company's website. Instead of calling a meeting with all the key players and hashing this out together, I've mapped out how this might work as an async process. Notice I've listed the 4 roles on the left side. Moving left to right represents the passage of time. At any point in the development process, we can see who owns a specific piece of work. As for project length, it really depends on how complicated the project is and how quickly you can reasonably ask people to complete a task. I could see this going on for about maybe 2 weeks, which seems like a long time. But keep in mind, it might have taken that long just to get people scheduled for a meeting in the first place. And you would likely have needed a few meetings to get it done. There you have it. I wanted you to think about async collaboration using a task that's easy to imagine doing in this way. In the future, I hope to do similar videos for other tasks that you may not think can be done asynchronously. If I can help your organization reduce the number of meetings and get more done using async strategies, I'd love to talk. Reach out anytime.